to discuss this further, I'm joined by Aly Khan Satchu. He is a geopolitical and economic analyst, as well as the CEO of Rich Management SSA. He joins us from Nairobi. Thanks so much for being with us. I mean, this is just, it's tragic. It's tragic. And it goes in part to prove, that so many African countries have been hit by the curse of natural resources, because they should be prosperous with gold, diamonds, even oil. And instead, they're among the poorest countries because those resources are stolen and then feed corruption.
You're absolutely right. The numbers are staggering. It's just short of $1 trillion we're talking about, the total quantum. As you said, $87 billion a year, more than all the foreign aid that comes into the continent. It's just mind-boggling. Basically, what we know is Africa is an incredibly rich continent, but it's unable to monetize its natural resources for the betterment of the continent. It's very unfortunate. It's typically not even rocket science. A lot of this stuff gets round-tripped. We all know where it is. It's been going on for a very long time, and it's entirely unfortunate. It really is. And as we entered this crisis in 2020, with our economies right at the line, it's doubly troubling.
Right. I mean, you say it's been round-tripped. We all know where it is. But, I mean, give us some examples of, like the most disturbing incidences you've seen, basically of outright theft.
So, I mean, take a place like the DR Congo, which is one of the richest countries in the world and has been for decades, but, it's at the same time, it's one of the poorest. I mean, we know, for example, gold is just lifted out of DR Congo, taken into the Middle East, refined, never shows up in the books. We know Rwanda supposedly is one of the biggest exporters of gold and other precious metals. It hasn't got a single precious metal in Rwanda's borders. The problem is we all rub our hands, but we know exactly what's going on. And it's really unfortunate. There doesn't seem to be a will to do anything about it. And it's because everybody's involved in it. Governments, top politicians fund their politics through this. It's a whole rigmarole.
And I mean, the bigger problem really is it's not just inside Africa, it's outside Africa. There are obviously foreign countries who benefit greatly from this, foreign banks as well. If they are not there to launder money, I mean, when you see Lamborghinis driving around the streets of Paris that are driven by, countries that, where 80% of the population lives below the poverty line, there's a problem. That money has gotten into the country illicitly. So who should really be taking responsibility for theft from Africa?
So you're talking about Equatorial Guinea, which has a per capita GDP of about $15,000 to $18,000, but has the poorest population on the entire continent. The leadership has been there for more than 3 decades, and simply nothing has been done about it. And that situation is symptomatic of the disease. Banks, whether you look at what happened under Dos Santos in Angola, South Sudan, I mean, you name it, and every single bank that you can think of is involved in this. I mean, I saw recently JP Morgan was fined for spoofing the precious metals market, was fined $1 billion. Look, the amount of money the banks are making is many, many multiples of whatever punishments they're going to face. It's an absolute farce. But, we'll have a lot of speeches, we'll have a lot of reports by people, but I guarantee you the same story will be there 10 years down the track.
Well, that's disappointing to say the least. But I want to ask you very quickly about at least the case of Angola. A lot of attention has been drawn to that. Isabel dos Santos has been in the spotlight for it, and it looks like the fingers are really being pointed at those who were complicit in her alleged activities. If that case against her goes well, both inside Angola and the foreign partners involved, could that finally set some kind of example for the rest of the continent that leaders like her and her family won't get away with this?
Well, I mean, this was a classic tale. Isabel dos Santos, Entrepreneur of the Year in Africa. I mean, she was not an entrepreneur other than stealing state resources. It was blatantly obvious to anybody with half a brain. She had this paraphernalia of advisors, banks who did business with her. And you can go into the transaction she did, for example, when she was in charge of Sonangol. I mean, they were ludicrous for the simplicity of the theft. But yet we had this reinvention. Now, I genuinely hope, because if they don't fix it, Angola is going to go bust in a couple of years' time. It's already at the precipice. And we're now at a point in time where really something has to be done about it. The question is the international community, is law enforcement, are our regulators prepared to really go after these? This is low-hanging fruit. You don't even need anybody with more than a degree in finance to work out what's happening. And really, I think it's high time we dealt with it. It would be good if we went after some of these cases, which are so egregious and so obvious and so self-evident. I think that would be a good barometer to work out whether we're really serious about dealing with this African problem. It's a worldwide problem as well.
Okay, Aly Khan Satchu, thank you so much for joining us there.